Hey Vancouver, welcome back to another episode of Vancouver Real. My name is Mike Zaremba, and always with me is my big brother Andy.
It's good to be back. What are we on now? What
27.
episode? 27.
Nice.
Yeah.
We're getting up there in the podcasting world, you know?
It's becoming like a thing.
It is. It's a thing.
Yeah.
I don't know what that thing is exactly yet.
Well, it's evolving
It's its own
before our
entity.
eyes and before your ears if you're listening
It's
to
funny
this.
the reach we get with this thing, though.
It's
like,
odd.
It's weird. I have people from different areas all the time who say, "Oh, I heard that podcast. I listened to you on that one." And it's kind of coming together in a weird way, from people, random people on the street to people in like a yoga studio or whatever. It's really cool, actually.
No, it's fun. It's very fun, and you know, we love doing it, and that's why we're doing it. And we thank you all for being a part of this little journey with us. And as always, we're podcasting here out of Float House in Gastown, Vancouver, BC. 70 West Cordova Street. Our website is floathouse.ca. And if you're not really aware of what floating is, you should check out our new video that we just made. It's called What is Floating? If you literally type that into the YouTube search engine, it will be the first video to pop up. It's got nearly 10,000 views in just about a month, so it's making its rounds. And I think it's because we put a lot of thought into it, a lot of energy, and it kind of encapsulates both the scientific and the kind of more personal, subjective side of floating in a nice little balance, I think. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And I like how we made that video fairly generic, so it could be basically shared by anybody.
Yeah.
But even still, people are requesting, do you mind if we just cut off the end part, you know, with your website and logo and all your information, and just, you know, use your video and put our stuff at the end? And we're like, no, you can just share.
At least they asked.
At least they asked. That's one
Yeah.
thing. But people, you know, they're trying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We also want to recognize Omega Point YouTube channel, our silent partner, who's not here as much as we'd like, but
We miss you, Omid.
Yeah,
Come back. We
yeah,
miss you.
he'll come back
Yeah.
someday, I'm sure. I know he's been busy. He's been a busy guy. So, but that's Omega Point on YouTube. He's got some really cool videos. He actually just released last week an amazing video with Jason Silva. Do you know who Jason Silva is?
No, the name's not familiar.
He's like a internet personality almost.
Okay.
Right, Jason Silva. The video he showed us.
Yes,
right?
he does shots
He's
of
cool.
awe, they're called. He's got a whole YouTube channel called Shots of Awe. And there's like 2-minute videos that are just very high energy, very inspirational about whether it's about spirituality or philosophy or it's just kind of an author's idea that he'll play off of and talk about. And he does a really good job of articulating things in general. And so Omid recently did a new collaboration video with him, and it's like exploding right now, which is really cool for Omid. So he's pretty excited about that. So definitely go check out the new Jason Silva Shots of Awe, and I believe it's about MAPS, the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, is that video. Anyways, that was a mouthful. Good warm up.
It always
Yes.
is.
And moving on, today we have with us an old friend, actually, who
One of the original floaters we just found out.
Yeah, she was one of the brave souls that ventured up into our condo in North Vancouver when we had Float Vancouver going, our one-tank pseudo float center out of my condo, and Heather White has joined us. So thank you so much for coming on. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm thrilled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're a life designer, a business advisor, a public speaker. You're an authenticity advocate. So you work a lot with leadership development and life coaching, those sorts of fields, and you seem to be very honest about your work. You refer to yourself as a recovering perfectionist, which I love. I love that kind of term.
Yes.
It's
Recovering includes relapses.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. And just quickly get it off, you have a couple websites. One is leader-within.com, which is one of your newest ventures going, and heatherwhite.ca, and she is also at Heather2020 on Twitter. You're a very established public speaker. You're a writer. You've featured in the Vancouver Sun, Fresh Magazine, the Under 30 CEO, and the Daily Love. So you've made your rounds within the city. You're doing quite a good job, and still a relatively young career. So
Thank you.
Congratulations with all that.
Thank you so much. Thank
Cool.
you very much. Yes.
And just for people that aren't aware of who you are, can Can you start us off with just a bit of a background of your life until now and how you kind of come to where you are, and more in depth of what you do currently?
Sure, I'll try.
Yeah, just whatever comes.
Listening to that intro, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what a hodgepodge.
No, it's good. It's awesome. It's amazing.
It's good. Yeah, it's good. I mean, I made peace with it a long time ago. You know, when I first started my business in 2007, it was all about niche market and, you know, focus message and make sure that that you can, you know, give your elevator speech in 20 seconds and people would be able to understand what you did. And I always struggle with that. So I'm at peace with it. I'm a bit of a mess. I'm all over the place. I'm a freedom junkie. So I'm always listening inside around, you know, sometimes I do something and to me change is life and life is change, and I'll get going on something and it's great and all of a sudden it's not great anymore. And so I'll back up to tell you how I got here. I grew up with divorced parents. And my whole mission in life was to become a divorce lawyer and save the rest of the divorced children of the world.
Wow.
That was sort of my first early ambitions. And thanks to, I know this is going to sound crazy, but Matlock was a huge inspiration in my early days because it was a show I was allowed to watch as a kid, and it was pretty clean. So I literally I had my whole plan set. Life was set from about 10 years old. I was going to go into family law. And I did. I started on that path. I went to university and took an undergrad degree. And what happened was I was still planning to go and go over to law school. But in the summer that I graduated from university, my stepdad, who for all intents and purposes was my father figure in my life, even though my biological dad is still alive. But Alvin was, you know, my father in the sense that he married my mom at 8 years old. We had a blended family and raised me. And he was diagnosed with terminal cancer very, very unexpectedly, 42 years old. And it really rocked our family. So everything kind of went out the window. And it was all divinely guided, I'm sure of it. You know, but as a result of that, I ended up staying home, not going back to law school, and helping out around the home with my two young brothers who were 10 and 11 at the time. Because Alvin wanted to come home, he was in palliative care. It was just the right thing to do for me. It was you know, our family was in crisis for all intents and purposes, and so as that kind of started to come to a conclusion, it was obvious to me that I was sort of lost. I wasn't in school. I didn't have a job. I didn't know what I was going to do.
How old were you around this time?
So it was 2003, I guess, because I just graduated from university, so 22 years old. Is that right? Anyways, I don't know. Do
Still
the math.
a baby.
I'm born in 81. I'm 33 years old.
Where did you go to university?
UBC. I did my undergrad at UBC. So it was just one of those things. I was chatting with my girlfriend, kind of just candidly saying, I don't know what I'm going to do now. And she said she was working for a corporation and she was in HR. And she just suggested casually, like, why don't you just apply and do something in inside sales? And so I did, and I got the job and quickly progressed and was really fortunate to have this early introduction into business, not planned. I became an outside sales rep pretty quickly, and that was 100% commission sales structure at the time. And you know, just I was learning a whole bunch of things that I didn't know I was learning until way later. Things about relationship building, things about, you know, just driving the results of your life, personal responsibility, sort of seeds planted that didn't grow for many, many more years. But so I was doing that, but I was not happy on the inside. All the sort of boxes were checked on the outside: good job, undergraduate degree, you know, freedom in the job, opportunity to grow. I had great mentors and people that were really supportive in the role, but it wasn't me. And yet, everybody that I said, oh, you know, I'm not happy, or I kept trying to reach out, sort of appealing to people, and they're all like, you're insane.
Well, it's the standard narrative, right?
Like, what's wrong with you? You have this great job, and you're making great money, and you have great opportunity and chance to grow, and there's freedom. And I was outside sales, so you're on the road, you know. So a lot of people that are, I don't want to say stuck, but their perception is that they're stuck in sort of a spot from Monday to Friday night. They're looking at me saying, you know, you're going to be on the road, you're out for lunch, you know. And I was in the food industry, so it was, especially in those days, pre-2008, it was fun, frankly.
Right.
It was fun. Lots of lunches, lots of dinners, lots of growth, sales conferences, you know, all that kind of stuff. So I couldn't find anybody to validate my inner struggle. except for one person, and it was so ironic, and it ended up being one of my clients, and it was her that called me up one day and invited me to join a mastermind group with them, and I was totally resistant. She said, "Oh, we're gonna get together and talk about our goals and dreams for our lives," and I was like, "Oh, barf." I was just, it's just funny, right? It's kind of one of those things that thing you resist the most.
I can kind of relate to that one, I think, because you think to yourself, well, I've got things figured out. I'm doing pretty well for myself. Why do I need help? Why should I look to try to improve my life? I'm happy. I'm okay with what I'm doing right now.
Yeah,
right?
And the ironic thing is I wasn't happy.
Right.
But yet, and here was this lifeline, and I was still going to say no.
Yeah.
But luckily, she was very, very persistent, and so I ended up on this mastermind call. Long story short, it was led by a life coach. Never heard of life coaching before, and some just opened me up. I don't know. It's hard to find the words, and that was just the floodgate opened. I started studying more. I ended up studying under Bob Proctor for a couple of years, quite formally.
The Toronto Tornado.
The Toronto, is that what they call?
Yeah, I've heard.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I wouldn't be surprised to hear that. Yeah. And then simultaneous to that, I also had this great opportunity by one of Alvin's actual connections from when he was alive, and this gentleman was a huge influence, and actually at one point offered to fund the startup of my company, which ended up being this idea. Really was, I fell in love with personal development, and I thought, hey, I want to do this too. I was trying to send my girlfriends the tapes of Bob Proctor that I was listening to, and they were like, who is this guy? Like, how can you even listen to this?
Yeah.
So it was a little bit of a light bulb, like the information is so valuable. It's universal truth.
That's the thing about it. I find with a lot of personal development stuff, like we've been into a series called Mental Toughness by a guy named Steve Sable. We were into that. Introduced to him probably like 2008, roughly.
Yeah,
and we were listening to him around
2010, 2009, 2010.
Yeah, I was a little, because Mark gave it to me a little before you.
Right.
And the funny thing with that kind of content is, especially his series, it just sounds so cheesy. And the first time I listened to it, I'm like, this is like, how am I going to listen to this? But then one night I actually sat down, I'm like, all right, I'm going to give it a shot. I listened to it, and instead of focusing on the presentation itself, I just listened to what he was talking about in the messages. And I was like, okay. I'm like, when I started really thinking about it, I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. But it's just, it's so too bad that the presentation was so cheesy that it could deter people right there.
Yeah, it's funny, right?
Yeah.
It's like the messages are all right here. They're not hiding from us. All the maps are available. It's just funny how so that was my experience. And then, I just said, okay, well, I want this to be available. It was like, I think we all have that experience when we've been gifted with awareness. It's like we can't help but share. It's like we're compelled almost.
Well, yeah, I think a lot of people in that kind of personal development realm, they once you go into that realm, so many people get really hooked on it and want to actually become like a coach or something. I see it quite a bit, actually. And it is very addictive because you see the doors get blown wide open for you, and it's like, wow, I could teach people how to do this, no problem, One thing interesting, you talked about resistance. At this course I just took, they spoke about resistance, and they said resistance is the first step towards transformation. So when you feel that strong resistance coming on, you should go into it, because that's probably where you're going to transform. I was wondering, did you have you ever taken any like landmark type courses?
No landmark, no.
Did you take any courses like that?
The only real formal course I took was Bob Proctor's 2-year coaching consulting, life success coaching consulting course, which was essentially a series of self-study programs, which I still have to this day, and I honestly still listen to them a lot.
Yeah.
Again, I just think it's beyond the words, right? It's the energy behind the words. It's the vibration underneath it all, and I'm at a place where I love it all, but I totally understand, and I remember vividly the responses of people when I was trying to share it with them, saying like, "How can you listen to this? I don't understand." So that was just sort of the inception for me. That was the entry point, and then since then it's just been a series of unfoldings in my own life, and then a desire to share, and then looking and finding opportunities to do that.
Yeah.
I'm a Gemini. I love to talk. It was sort of ironically another real crazy realization for me. In the early days, it sounded very me, I love to talk. What I realize now, what the message really was, is that we all do have unique gifts and talents and ways in which we are equipped to offer our life in service that is very specific and unique to us. And for me, language is something that I love. I'm very good at articulating and taking big ideas and making them understandable for people. So that's something that has allowed me to do the kinds of vocational things I've done, whether it be coaching or speaking or training or leadership development or writing, and any of those things. That's just sort of my way, I guess. And I think one of the best gifts we can give ourselves is the time, the space to find our way.
Right. Yeah. And so fast forward to like today, what would you say are the main kind of pillars of your professional life right now?
Speaking for sure. Keynote speaking is something, I've been so fortunate to be given all kinds of opportunities to hone that skill.
So like conferences and seminars?
Conferences, seminars, leadership conferences primarily, where there's an element of personal development or spiritual development, quite frankly, which doesn't always come out sounding like that on the outside, but that's really what it is.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting you say that, because I'm doing a talk in a few weeks where the theme is spirituality. I think they kind of invited me in because of what we've created here with Float House, and how there is, for some people, definitely a spiritual line to it. But so I've been kind of thinking about this topic a little bit, and what I'm coming to kind of realize as I prepare for my presentation is that it's a life is holistic. It's like life is kind of spiritual. It's all that's where language can get kind of tricky sometimes, because you say one word, the spirituality, and that will mean so many different things, probably something really uniquely different to every single person. So all you can really start to do then is refer to your experiences and then through expressing those, you'll probably be able to, again, more so the energy behind the words versus the words themselves is what really gets communicated or might resonate or not with somebody else, So
yes, for sure.
It's just it's a tricky one for sure. It's something that
I'll put you on the spot a little bit. What does that word spirituality mean to you?
Great. I'm glad to be put on the spot. I'll start by saying I don't know, because I think that helps me a lot to start there.
Plus from your life.
And my background is the same. I mean, I grew up with religion without the spirit. So when
were you part of a church or?
No, but just my experiences, particularly as a kid, experiencing religion. And then once I was at an age where I was allowed to be the one to formulate the reason behind whether I did or did not want to engage in it, I didn't feel the energy, the spirit of it, and I think a lot of us, or definitely myself, I've got a bit of a hangover from all that. So in the early days, even Bob Proctor talks about it. He has a saying, let go and let God. And I remember being like, fast forward.
Yeah. What does it mean, let go and let God?
It means faith.
Let go
and let God. It means you let go of trying to control the outcome. Let go of thinking that you do your part, and then you sort of let Spirit, the universe, God. Again, right?
Whatever
we get caught up in the words.
Yeah.
So back to your question. Sorry, I'm not trying to be evasive. I promise. Spirituality to me means love. Not in the romantic sense. It means like acceptance, awareness, consciousness. Something beyond the five senses.
It's such a tough one to define, right? It's
indefinable.
Correct.
That is the problem.
Yeah.
We're trying. Are you guys familiar with Ram Dass?
Yep.
Okay, so I think it was him that said it, which he says we're trying to describe in finite terms the infinite. And this is inevitably our challenge, right? And that's why the words are not enough. They point the way, but I think that's where the deeper issue is around what's the energy behind the words. Religion, to me, in many ways, and not all the time, because there can be a lot of spirit, a lot of heart in it. Again, it depends who, why, but it's become quite. It's created a lot of separateness in our world. And to me, spirituality is all about connectedness. It's all about looking beyond all the layers of which our lens is clouded to see in you the same place that's in me, and it's a realization. It's not a knowledge acquisition, you know. So it can only be done, I think, really through experience. That's why I can't tell you how to do it. You can't tell me how to do it.
Right. Yeah, you can only. And that's the thing, like, and it's funny because we get, you know, there's different phases of it, I find too. Like, there's definitely the early part where you, like, for myself, and I want to get into this with my talk, is there's a phase of, like, I can't stop reading the books. You know, I'm like, I need to read this book and that book and the next book and the next book, and then or listening to different videos or different programs or different things, and then, you know, there comes a point where you're like, all these books, although using different words, are kind of saying the same thing. So like, okay, so I've read the books now, so what's the next kind of thing? And I think getting into that experience realm is where you have to just start to subjectively put the pieces together in your own puzzle, you know, in your own experience, and, and go from there.
Yes,
you know?
Because isn't there such a fundamental difference between knowing and being the knowing?
Sure,
absolutely.
I
mean, there's a lot of people, myself included, I can quote it, I can tell you, I can describe it, I can articulate it, but the real question is, can I be it? Because if I can be it, then I don't have to say anything.
Right. And
your life becomes, you know, Gandhi used to say that, right? At the end he was asked, you know, what is your message or whatever, and he said, my life is my message.
Right.
My being, who I am when I do what I do, that's my message.
Right.
Yeah. Which is actually, I at first I thought that was really daunting when I kind of grasped that concept, which is essentially that you only ever have yourself to work on.
Yeah.
That's it. And then I found, after that, I realized it was actually quite liberating.
Sure.
It was not easy, but liberating in the sense that, okay, all I have to do is work on myself.
Right. And then through your own work and through your own, ideally, your own being, that's where probably the truest message of all would be communicated, right? And just your interactions that you have, whether it's on the stage or just with your mom or your siblings or whatever. That's the real message, right?
Yes.
Taking away the context of the words. It's just you and your form, your energy, as we are all, at some level, we are an energetic being, you know. If we go into the quantum world of atomic matter and particles, there's an energy there. So, you know, that's a part of it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And, you know, I want to kind of touch in, before we get too on our tangents.
Yes.
You know, your latest kind of endeavor called the Leader Within. And you have a partner there, Robert Murray, that you're kind of collaborating with and co-creating with. Yeah. Can you kind of talk a bit about that for us?
Absolutely, please.
And
Thank you.
What that is. And
again, it was one of those things not unplanned, and I was actually hosting an online program called Entrepreneurs TV, and I was interviewing entrepreneurs and CEOs and thought leaders.
That's cool.
And I interviewed Bob because he had written a book about leadership called It's Already Inside, and we just had a great connection, a great conversation, share a lot of the same values, basically that basic principle that it's inside of us. It's more about revealing who we are and trusting ourselves and trusting that we have what it takes to show up in the world in that moment and be our most authentic self. And in his case, he's a seasoned executive, many years in the corporate arena. So his angle was perhaps slightly different, but the general perception was the same for both of us.
Right.
And it was just an opportunity popped up for us to do a gig together in London. It was a training gig. He liked me. I liked him. We went over there and did a training gig, a leadership development program, and it was great. We had a great time. All those sort of a local teacher, Danielle Laporte, who you might know, she talks about the metrics of ease.
Okay.
You know, when things are easy, and that's how it was. It was just so easy. There was no politics. There was no hiccups, no challenges, no issues about even just little things, you know, how to split the revenue, none of that. It was just so easy. We had a great time. Clients loved it. We loved it. So something else came up, we did that. Something else came up, we did that. We've since been back to Europe, I think it's either 8 or 9 times now over the last 18 months.
Awesome. That's awesome.
And so last summer we decided, okay, well, we've got something here. formalize this a little bit more. And that's really what the Leader Within is. It's a more formalization of this easy project that sort of came out of nowhere.
Right. And take us into that a little bit. So when you guys go and do your, what do you call them, workshops or seminars?
Yeah, you kind of have a flagship program, and then because we're big fans of customer-driven opportunities, it's not that we're set in that. It's just to give an offering to the market. But the premise is authentic leadership, giving people the confidence to be who they are, giving people the skills that will allow them to be confident in who they are. And especially for executives, a lot of it comes down to personal development, personal planning, personal presentation, not physical presentation per se, but your ability to speak, your ability to get your message across, your ability to lead, your ability to have that like and trust with your followers so that they come with you as apostles versus as hostages.
Yeah.
So that's, and for me, my angle, Bob likes to say I bring the right brain. I don't know what I bring other than again, my own journey in arriving to a place where I feel comfortable and confident being who I am, and hoping that energy is spreading to the people that are coming.
Very cool.
What would you say, what are the main pillars? What are the big things that, if you're training somebody or coaching them to be a leader, what is it that the big areas that you would want to cover with them?
But where do you start?
For me, I usually start, I guess an easy way to talk about it would be like a gap analysis. So what's missing for them? What do they feel is missing? Because again, my belief is that it's already inside. It's just a matter of me being the mirror to help them see that they have it within themselves and to have the confidence to bring it out. We're all struggling to be ourselves. We're all looking for some kind of outside validation to say that it's okay, it's safe, for you to be you. And especially I think the corporate arena is changing very quickly right now. I think it's dying, really. I don't know if that's too perverse to say. We can't keep going the way we've been going.
Right.
We have to have some new bottom lines, and then we're seeing that happening more and more.
Right.
A more humanitarian perspective, a more humanitarian bottom line, a more honor towards the human contribution.
Right.
Have you, this is a little bit off topic, but have you ever heard of a B Corp certification before?
Yeah, I have. Some local gals that I'm just a huge fan of. Madeline Shaw and Suzanne Siemens, who run Luna Pads.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with them.
I've heard of them,
yeah. That's the only introduction. I actually interviewed them on Entrepreneurs TV as well, and that's the only introduction formally I have to B Corp. But I am familiar vaguely with the fact that it's available.
Yeah, we've just started going through the process with Float House, actually.
Okay.
And it's really neat because they look through every aspect of your business, and their motto or mission statement, whatever you want to call it, is your business a force of good in the community? And that's such a huge umbrella to cover, but they look at everything to how you're treating your employees, to environmental impact, what you're doing socially, all those different things.
Cool.
And it show that it's not just about profit, and there is more to your company. Like they said, it's a force for good. So we've done the initial assessment of that and where we are, and then we move on to the next step. And it's a huge process to get a B Corp certification. You have to get, it's a scale of 200 points.
Wow.
And you have to be 80 to be B Corp certified.
Okay.
Right now, we're at 17.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And
we got some work to do.
we haven't even completed most of the assessment yet, but that's where we are on the point scale.
Right.
But
the
highest one is 150 points.
Wow.
And that's the highest company out there
right
now.
Wow.
And there's a lot of ones that are, just past 80, and if you get that, it's actually really good.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I was wondering if you knew any more about
that's
things
really
like
all
that,
I know, but to me that's exciting. Those are sort of the ways things are changing. Going back to your question about leadership, though, I still think if we can help people develop some of the soft skills so that they have a seat at the table, so that their voice can be heard, and that then when they are at the table and their voice can be heard, then those authentic, values-driven way of leading have an opportunity to come out. You still have to be at the table. If you're not at the table, then your voice doesn't get heard.
Right.
And there are certain things that sort of help you get there, if you will.
And what would you say those are?
A sense of purpose. like a real true sense of passion and meaning and emotional engagement in what you do every day. A high degree of emotional intelligence, awareness, ability to know how do you impact other people, how do they feel when you're around, how are you able to communicate with them on levels beyond just words and body language, but on that energetic level. A vision, the ability to see where you're going, what does the future look like, so that you can be able to compel people to get engaged in something that you're driving towards. Strong values, personal core values that align with whatever your company is. To me it's integrity, right? It's that you are on the inside who you are on the outside, that those things line up, that integration between mind, body, spirit, if you will, is there. An ability to communicate is huge. Again, in your own way.
Yeah.
But you need to be able to do that.
And do you help people, like, obviously first identify these, get them on the right track to start thinking along this way, and then also how to kind of create not like a relative systematic approach to integrating it, applying it, and then probably there's an even further step of reevaluation, because like you kind of alluded to, it's ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's funny how you can have, and I'm kind of, I hope I'm coming out of the proverbial fog right now, is you have this huge goal. Like when we were opening Float House, there's this strong objective, this goal, this drive, and then we got it. We got the doors open, and we stayed alive for a year and all that kind of stuff, right? And now you're kind of okay, now we need a new direction, we need a new goal, and you got to kind of, you have to reevaluate the things, right?
Yes.
And I'm sure that through that whole experience, I've changed. Like the experiences I've had have changed who I am and how I relate to everything. So now, okay, I got to reevaluate, reassess who am I, what do I want to do, and where do we want to go?
Yeah, exactly. Yes,
so
yes,
it's
yes,
a
and
constant
yes.
process.
Goal achievement equals goal bereavement.
What do you mean
by that? At least that's what I found. The achievement of the goal is actually quite anticlimactic and almost depressing and a letdown,
right.
Because it's the progress, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the part what's tapping you into your natural motivation,
Yeah.
So you reach the goal and it's kind of like, now what? And if you're not ready for that moment, it can be very defeating. I think it can create a whole lot of turmoil, internal turmoil for people.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to that whole idea of what's next, and always looking for an external source of happiness. So you're achieving your self-worth and your value for what you've done, what you've created, or what you've obtained.
Yes.
So you're looking for these outside sources as opposed to looking in.
Mm-hmm.
And you can keep going outside all the time, and you're going to get that little high moment when you get that promotion or start a new business or buy a new car or whatever the thing it was.
Mm-hmm.
And then that'll fade real quick.
Mm-hmm.
And then, well, what next?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're always searching externally for happiness,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people kind of get sucked into that trap. And I think it happens a lot with like the super rich of the world. Like the whole 1% own, like, what is it, 70% of the wealth? I don't know what the numbers are
it's like
exactly.
how do you get to that level without kind of going through that?
It's crazy. I mean,
stuck in that
there's a
cycle.
guy who owns the shipyards down in North Van.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mr. Washington.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say his name, but too late now.
Too late.
Because that guy could just, literally pluck Float House off the face of the earth if he wanted to, I'm sure.
Okay, well, you can edit that out.
There'd be a social uprising if that happened.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
All the floaters would be out there with their, their pickets and be like,
float on.
But that company is huge, and he had this mega yacht down there. It was one of the biggest ones in the world, like worth. I think he bought it for like $100 million and put $250 million into it. Like just huge. We actually had a tour of it. It's pretty amazing, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But the guy has like 9 of them, and you're like, whoa. You need 9 of those things? No, they weren't all quite that big, but they're all big, giant yachts.
Mm-hmm.
And that just tells you like what's going on there. Like, how much is enough? And at what point do you say, okay, how much am I going to keep looking externally to achieve something? And I think a lot of people fall into that trap, I think.
Well, and it's a natural law of the universe, really, the expansion, right? So I think there's 2 things going on. I can't speak to whether the guy's happy or not. I don't know.
Well, from what we hear, no.
Yeah, okay.
He's not at all. He's miserable.
But the natural expansion, I think, is very normal. I think there's that's just nature.
Yes.
It's the universe.
Yeah.
Right. The question is why.
The question is why. Like, sometimes.
And what is expanding particularly in your life, and are we being like reflective and mindful about those things? And I think the lack of the happiness thing comes from a disconnection with our true purpose. Our internal purpose. Right. Not that I can give the guy a purpose, because it's only within him, right? Yeah. But the suffering, to me, that's the clue, that's the invitation to go inside. And unfortunately for a lot of people, the suffering has to get really, really dramatic and traumatic for that to happen, for them to realize that's... Yeah. But it's coming forward for a reason. Like Ram Dass says, suffering is grace. That can be quite a great at first when you think about that. What do you mean suffering is grace? But at least in my experience, and my suffering is very, very limited. I understand that I'm not suffering from any life-threatening illness. It's all relative, and we got to not compare. And I don't mean to be in any way offensive to people that are suffering from things that would be far greater than what my suffering has been. But those have always been the invitations to look within. Those have always been the greatest moments of internal growth, which by nature then have an outside reflection back to you, in the outside world. But I think we're really here to be of service. And so the question is, are the boats of service? I don't know. Do they employ a lot of people? I don't know.
Well, they do. Actually,
so
they have crews.
It's also about consciousness. Like, where is his head at when he's doing that? Mm-hmm. That's really what it comes down to, right? It's not really what we're doing; it's who we are when we're doing what we're doing. If he's a scared, ego-driven, insecure consciousness when he's purchasing, I don't even know who this is, by the way, but then that's the energy in his action, and that's the karma that he's creating in his experience. Mm-hmm. If his consciousness was coming from a place of service and offering, and this was his life incarnation, and this was his journey, and it was going to employ all these people, and it was going to give opportunities for their families to grow, and I don't know, immigrate from other countries or have a better life or whatever, then maybe he is doing
could be
his service, and we don't, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
there was a Harvard study, I think it was like 10 years ago, from Harvard School of Business, and they talked about how once you reach a certain level of income, and I think their number at that time was $75,000, that whatever you gain after that's actually not going to increase your level of happiness. I think that's true. I mean, I think around that level, probably a little bit more now, but once you get some of those fundamental needs met, and you're living in relative comfort, you're affording food, you're not living in a kind of scarcity kind of mode. I don't know how much more acquiring those things are really going to help you.
I hear you. Yeah, I don't know either. I don't know. I can tell you from my own life that when I've struggled a lot financially, it's been a lot, very consuming.
Totally.
Very, very consuming thing.
Definitely.
It's weighed my whole energy down. I have not been able to contribute from my highest self in those moments. But to your point, once I hit a certain level, it was just, I don't want to say that I'm completely ignorant or totally lost touch with it. It's never really been a driver for me. It's never really been a friend of mine thing, except for when I didn't have enough.
When you didn't have enough.
And that's when it was consuming every thought and very, very overwhelming and stressful and all that. So I think there is some fundamental things, I don't know, whether you want to think of it as Maslow's hierarchy or whatever, that once they're in place, then you have an opportunity to explore the deeper meaning of your life.
Yeah.
And there does seem to be, I mean, if you study all the Eastern stuff, there does seem to be...
They're talking about the caste system, the class system.
Well, there's that, and also the idea that, from 0 to 30, you're basically, that's your whole purpose in life, is to figure out how to hit that platform.
Level,
and 30 to 60 is your opportunity to learn, to understand the teachings of life, and then from 30 to 60 is to be of service and offering that back. So there seems to be something to that, at least in my experience as well. It's been, figure out what
makes it tick. Yeah.
Learn what you need to learn that's incongruent with your way, and offer, your life in service, whatever that looks like for you.
Yeah.
I struggled a lot, I'll be honest. I struggled a lot, especially with the sort of parallel spiritual journey to the parallel sort of entrepreneurial journey, and I get lost a lot. I still do, where it's like, okay, from one perspective, I'm building a business and I'm responsible for certain things. From another perspective, money's not the driver. Am I getting lost in my ego? What is this? So
that's always a tough one, right?
It's a bit of a slippery slope, and I think self check-ins, self-awareness around it.
Self check-ins. What are some of your favorites? What do you do?
Like, I know as soon as something's not right. I just feel it in my body, and what I have not been good at, what I'm getting better and better at, is just listening to it sooner and acting on it quicker. In terms of self check-ins, even things like floating. Floating is a great way for me to just shut it all down. And let that awareness come up to the surface. Because really what I'm usually doing is distracting myself from the nudging internal guidance that's trying to come through. Or numbing, however that looks. It's just distraction, numbing, just trying to look away. But it's kind of like trying to hold a beach ball underwater, right? Every time it's just, everywhere you look,
that's really great, actually. It's very fleeting. That's one thing that I've experienced myself with a lot of different things like floating, meditation, workshops, personal development courses, psychedelic experiences, all those different things. You have this great, profound experience and moment, and then you go back to your normal life. And then it kind of fades off, then old habits kind of come back in. And, the work is maintaining it afterwards.
Totally.
After you have that big aha moment, as they call it, right?
Writing, nature, for me, for sure. I mean, even like practices that might seem silly to some people have been really helpful for me. Right hand, left hand writing.
I've heard that stuff.
Like, to be honest with you, I don't care. I really don't care. I'm beyond the point of needing to know how it works and why it works.
You just accept that it works.
I do. Where I get into trouble is when I suggest it to other people and then they want to know why. And then I'm like, I don't know.
Just because.
And then then I'm in that trap, that do as I do not, or whatever. And never, and then again, you just say, hey, do whatever resonates for you. For me, I'm driven by the desire to want to feel good in my life. That's it. That's my main thing. When I don't feel good, when the suffering is there, I know like there's a variety of different causes of it, but the question is, am I going to pay attention to it? Am I going to be conscious of it? Am I going to take responsibility for it?
And
am I going to do something about it?
That's kind of like you were saying, that 0 to 30 age is like taking that time, and it doesn't have to be 30. It can be 40, 50.
Totally.
It doesn't matter. Like, don't think if you're not at a certain level or at a certain thing by a certain age, that's a problem. It's not. But the point is like, there's a part of your life where try to, and hopefully you have the initial opening of awareness that you want to learn about yourself and like what's going to make you tick and what triggers you and all those things. And then that's where you just having that initial awareness will help you develop further and to just get you on some sort of path of whatever your unique personal journey will be, So it's I love this kind of conversation. I love this stuff. I find it's very real. It's very grounding, but also very uplifting as well. It's that kind of paradox of letting people share what they're experiencing, and through that humbling, you can kind of take something a little bit further. So, but I want to talk a little bit about public speaking a little bit, because I know you do that quite a bit. And you have actually an awesome opportunity coming up this weekend. You said TEDxBCIT, which is the first TEDx at BCIT, which is, I bet you they're going to do a phenomenal performance. It's going to be awesome. Do you have a rehearsal at all?
Yes, I have a sound check tomorrow. Cool. And I have to agree with you. And BCIT has just blown me away. I mean, I graduated with a degree in mixology. I mean, I did stuff.
A lot of us did.
What they are blowing me away. Their professionalism, their sense of energy and passion behind what they're doing, their professionalism. It's been quite the experience for me.
Sweet.
Yeah, they're very, very on point. In fact, my deck isn't over to them yet, and I had to kowtow and ask for a couple of hour extension. And
we're taking your
and
time.
No, are you kidding me? No, this is just me. I mean, this, frankly, because of the recovering perfectionist thing, it's not quite right yet.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but yes, I'm beyond blown away. I'm right at my edge, to be honest with you. All my demons are out on the table right now this week with this coming up.
And I was telling you a little bit about Brian Rose, the host of London Real, this podcast, and he literally just did his TEDx talk about a week ago, and then he posted this video, and he's saying, he was saying today, it's ultimately not about the presentation that I give. It's all the work that I put into it and the journey that I go through preparing for this presentation, what actually literally will change me as a person, and that's what the kind of the objective of this is personally. Like, yes, you want to nail it, you want to have a good presentation, and people are coming to this event, and you want to do it justice. But ultimately, like after that's done and posted, and it's viewed 10,000, 50,000 times or whatever, it will ultimately be lost and forgotten, and people aren't going to be thinking every day, remember Heather's talk at BCIT. But it's going to be the lasting change is the change that you've experienced by just going through this process.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
And putting yourself out there for public speaking, it can be really daunting. But personally, what have you what has it done for you, and like why do you keep doing it?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Exactly, I resonate very much with what this gentleman from London has said.
Yeah, Brian Rose.
I do it because I think of my life as an offering. I think that the only way I can offer anything is if I learn and grow myself. Fear for me, that not like don't walk down this dark alley fear, but fear is an indication that I have an opportunity to grow.
Yeah.
That the invitation's in the mail, and the question is, am I going to take the opportunity to polish the mirror a little bit more, to come into closer contact with my true essence? And public speaking is something that scares me so much that it is always an invitation for me to grow.
Yeah. How is that now after having some experience in public speaking? Do you still experience that fear when you go up?
Yes. I mean, my anxiety for a talk usually starts anywhere from, depending on how much time I've had, anywhere from a month to 2 weeks before I'm going to go on.
Yeah.
And it's part of the prep, right? It's the grist for the mill. That's the thing, that's the suffering again. It's subtle, but that's the thing that's inviting me back into my practices of yoga, of meditation, of writing, of nature, of everything that allows me to be reminded that this isn't even about me.
Yeah.
And that there's a lot of safety for me in that, that I can surrender to that, and just to know, and to your point, that people, they forget about it. It's okay, and if I can sit in myself and say, yeah, I had this great opportunity, I prepared as best as I could, I was as honest and authentic as I had the consciousness to be in that moment as my offering, then that's it. That's all I can do.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it always brings up all my shit.
Yeah.
Sorry, can I say that?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Fuck yeah.
On podcasting, you can go nuts.
Oh, good.
Say whatever you want.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it.
I've been tempering myself all
don't.
day.
Let it
because
go.
I'm preparing for this TED Talk.
That's true. You don't want to let something slip tomorrow on the weekend.
Yeah, no, I know. I mean, that's when
Vancouver Real guys. God.
Well, I usually warn audiences, that I sometimes swear, and it just pops out.
It's natural. It's just language.
It's a sound that comes out of your mouth that people get really offended by sometimes.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's funny because it's one of those things that I've struggled with a lot, because I was never allowed to swear. So then when I finally, I swore a lot. Yeah,
okay.
To the point where I would watch like speaking gigs after the fact, and I'd cringe.
Oh yeah.
It was too much.
Yeah.
It was actually inauthentic, I think, as well.
Yeah.
In some ways, it was almost that it was like I was.
I can do it now.
Power word.
Yeah,
that
the
you're
pendulum swings. You
abusing
just.
Yeah.
Yeah, you hear
just
speeches
grow,
like
you
that.
learn,
And it's, one too many F-bombs there,
Yeah.
One or two actually is kind of powerful, but you say it 10 times,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's almost more of a crutch word than anything.
That's the thing, right?
Yeah.
So it's a fine balance, and they're all just little quirks, really. They're a sign of nerves. They're a sign of insecurity. I'm a human being. Despite what other people may perceive.
Yeah.
Do you think you can get numb to public speaking? Like, for example, like Barack Obama goes up and speaks in front of hundreds of thousands, millions of people. Do you think he's even like feeling anything anymore? Or do you think he's just?
I don't know.
I mean, how can you speculate? I guess, but do you think it ever gets to the point where there's no anxiety while speaking?
Perhaps, right? I think it again depends on everybody's journey, right? If speaking isn't your thing, if that's not your grist for the mill for your own awakening, then it's probably not going to be the thing that's going to, rattle you enough to encourage you into the practices of self-discovery and self-realization.
Yeah.
So if speaking isn't your thing that's doing that for you, then I think then it probably won't cause you any suffering,
Yeah.
But there'll be some other area of your life that will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, I think that there's certainly ways to numb yourself from speaking. I mean, there's Ativan.
Yeah, maybe numb wasn't the right word I was looking for.
But
I'm looking more in terms of maybe just desensitizing or that's kind of the same thing as numb.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is
more
just
comfortable.
More comfortable,
Yeah,
not feeling the anxiety, and
I
just being able to speak. And I feel like at some point there's like you have to have some acceptance of what you're doing, and you're like, okay, I'm speaking to a lot of people here, and
Yes.
they're gonna love me or they're gonna hate me, and there's not much I can do about that other than be, like you said, be your authentic self.
For sure. I mean, I think I'd be lying if I said that I haven't seen progress myself in how I feel when I'm up there. But in alignment with that, progress is progress of the gigs, right? That has progressed. So it's no longer maybe like a yoga studio full of people that want to talk about meditation or...
You have a whole diverse audience.
Yeah. And it's, for me anyways, again, it's like a connection and being able to believe in that connection, whether I see it or don't see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And trust and faith and all those things that opportunity gives me.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing, right? It's like there's still a part of my mind all week that wants to come up with reasons why. I was on a plane, for an example, last week. I was flying home from up north and on a little tiny plane, and they don't have all the bells and whistles of automated landing and things like this. And they had told us ahead of time, we might not get in. We might have to land somewhere else because there was a whole bunch of fog. And I'm not a great flyer to begin with. On the outside, I would appear fine, but I'm always a little...
Yeah, you are in a metal tube, miles into
and
the
I
air.
understand, and I know the logic that it's safer for me to be there than in my car in Vancouver, and I get that. It still doesn't necessarily decrease my
anxiety,
uncomfortable feelings. Yeah. So, and I remember there was a voice in my head that was like, well, you know what? If the plane crashes, like either you'll be able to get up, and that'll be, that'll be the reason why you're not good enough for this TED Talk, or maybe you just won't make it there at all. Mm-hmm. And these are genuinely honest thoughts that went through my mind. Yep. And there's another part of me that's watching all that go down and seeing, wow, look, like, where is this? Who is this?
And
where's
Heather,
it coming
right?
from? Right? Yeah.
The lower.
It was fascinating.
Yeah.
Actually, in the float tanks before, I have witnessed so many conversations going on simultaneously in my. It blows me away. I think, how are all those going on, and who are all those voices?
It's true. You get these like multiple voices, nearly personalities, like parts of yourself, like all fragmented up, like arguing back and forth or debating or like trying to trump or discourage. It's like, and the tank is a great environment for that because your thoughts and your mind kind of gets forced right into your face and there's no escaping it there, you know what I mean? So either you can relax and kind of let it just trickle off into the background, or it's going to kind of overwhelm you, or you can kind of like enjoy it and go with it and go on like thought journeys and stuff like that, as we call them sometimes. But you're right, sometimes you get into these weird multiple personality, like internal banters, and it's like, what the hell is going on in there?
And I find it really interesting to see where your mind starts going. It just starts going in completely random places, and you'll be kind of like in one of those thought journeys, as we call them, and then you'll be like, what? How did I end up there? And you just pull it back into your body, into your breath, or whatever it is you're doing, or maybe whatever your intention was before you started floating. But sometimes I'll even hear like a voice that's not my voice. I mean, or it doesn't sound like my voice. I literally will hear something speaking to me, something external, it sounds almost. And I get that frequently. I don't know what that is. You know, it is freaky when it happens, though, for sure. I mean,
it's the devil.
I just call it, It's okay. He's just making sure I'm in check or whatever. He's checking in with me. Hey, Andy, you want to join the dark side yet? No, not there yet. You know?
Well, and it's like we have this desire to know everything and know what's going on and be able to explain it. Sometimes it's fun just to be in the mystery of it all. I mean, I don't know what it all means either. But it's very complex for sure. There's lots of interesting things going on in there.
Well, one of my things that I kind of say quite a bit right now that I just feel is appropriate is that, you know, the universe in general is much more complicated or than we can understand it. Even the most sophisticated scientific principles and paradigms and what they're exploring now, don't get me wrong, it's genius, it's amazing, it's built upon centuries and centuries of knowledge and studies. But I feel like it's still just such a superficial understanding of what this reality is and what it all means and how it all really works. It seems like there's, you know, the mystery is alive and well, and more so than ever before, you know. So here's a little cool fact that I just learned today about you, actually. But you're gonna be impressed. Oh. You're a black belt in jiu-jitsu.
Sport jiu-jitsu, yeah.
Brazilian jiu-jitsu?
Sport. What happened
does that mean?
What happened was I was studying a formal martial art, Korean martial art called Hapkido. Okay. I was really lucky. So background of the story is my mom was remarried to Alvin. Alvin was Chinese. They had 2 boys together, my 2 half-brothers, Will and Ian, and they were the perfect little martial artists. Cool. Fit right in. And I was the babysitter. So I was watching in the back of the dojo while they were training for a long time. And Master Lee, Ivan Lee, and his wife, Jules Lee, were the instructors of this and had brought it over from Korea to the West. And I mean, Hapkido essentially means like all martial art, and it's a very, very traditional study and practice of the principles of martial arts, of all the martial arts. And it was founded by Grandmaster Guok, who's a 9th degree black belt, I think one of a few in the world. And Master Lee was very persistent with me. He kept inviting me to train with them. And I kept saying no. You know, I'm of Scottish descent. I'm unflexible. I'm lanky and tall, and I don't fit in here. And he was persistent, and I did eventually. I ended up working there, and they ended up becoming a huge extension of my family. They were a huge support network for me in my adolescent years, which were trying at best. And I progressed through their system up to... I think I was at a blue or brown belt, I can't remember at that point, where Master Lee was selected to be the coach for the Canadian Sport Jiu-Jitsu national team. Cool. And so what ended up happening was I got fast-tracked through their program after trying out for the team, making the national team, awarded a black belt in sport jiu-jitsu at that time, and was able to go on to the World Championships and represent Canada with that team. So,
what is sport jiu-jitsu?
Well, it basically at the time was... a form of martial art, throwing, grappling, and pinning in a sport format with a point system attached to it.
Okay, interesting.
Similar to judo, in a way?
It would be like a mixture of taekwondo, judo.
Was there striking?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. So points awarded for... So you started off in a traditional sparring position, kick punch sparring. Yeah. And your objective inevitably... And it was a point system. However, if you were able to submit your opponent, then that was an ultimate win, which is essentially how I lost.
Be it like an arm bar
That's
or
right.
a choke.
That's exactly how I lost.
Chokes and stuff?
What was an arm?
It was an arm bar,
What kind of arm bar was it? Just like the lying on...
flipped around on my back.
Yeah.
She got me.
Cool.
In my defense, I mean, I didn't think she had it, but again, the referees are there for safety first.
So you don't tap?
I lost. I hadn't tapped.
Oh,
no.
Okay. Well, come on.
I hadn't tapped.
Premature stoppage.
Exactly.
Well, they again, their objective is safety.
Gold medal round here, folks.
But you know what? It's like, it's one of these things, and everybody's always fascinated about it. I'm fascinated about it, the whole experience myself. What it really taught me more than anything was that we are so much more capable of doing and accomplishing things than we realize we are.
Right.
I was, speaking of resistance, I never in a million years ever believed that I was going to get there when those early conversations of Heather, come and train with us.
So I was going to ask you, like, what did being involved with martial arts and getting to a competitive level, what did it teach you? Is kind of like
it changed my life. I mean, it's the fabric of my being. It was it's about respect and honor. You know, it is about. We also practice yoga and meditation as part of our training. So that self-connection, that self-discipline, it was never about fighting, which was so ironic that we ended up going into this whole area. And actually, these guys now live in Hawaii and have evolved totally, and they're now into MMA. And they have their daughter is a national champion in wrestling and in MMA. And
cool.
I saw them a couple of years ago when they were in town, and I was like, "What's going on?"
How old's your daughter?
She's got to be just grade 10-ish. I'm thinking
cool.
10 or 11. Angela Lee is her name.
Angela
Lee. L-E.
Angela Lee. Watch out for Angela Lee coming on UFC.
The women's
Ronda Rousey is going to be dethroned.
And they were such a huge influence in my life. And I was there when Angela was born, and because I was working at the dojo, I was looking after her as a little kid, and now to see her where she's at. But they have such heart and passion and love. And yet they have the very traditional sort of external demeanor in terms of what you would imagine a true martial arts master to be and to look like.
Cool.
But I really believed that they loved me and loved my potential and helped nurture that.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the respect, the honor, the integrity, those are just things that they just never leave you. And I was trained that martial arts was never for fighting. It was self-defense training for the very, very unlikely chance you would ever need to use it.
Right. Yeah, and that's, I'm sure part of the teachings are about, using your discipline and control to prevent it ever getting to a physical altercation.
And your awareness.
Right. Yeah.
Like
knowing when to.
I didn't know I didn't know I was learning about consciousness.
Right,
at 11, 12, 13 years old. But that's exactly what they were.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. So
us.
This is happening throughout your kind of teenage formative years.
Yeah.
What a cool, lessons. Not necessarily. I mean, obviously, the self-defense training is very useful, and I think is something that everyone should learn in some sort of educational curriculum. But the other principles behind it too, I know, seem to be very, very valuable in terms of just developing awareness and something. It's too bad things like that aren't necessarily integrated formally into our current education programs as much as other things are kind of pushed towards sciences and math. Not that they're not important, but there's so much more to life than to just that. In managing your personal being, your mind, and your emotions. It doesn't matter how smart you are on the computer. If you can't communicate and understand yourself, then it's kind of a lost skill.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, just listening to that makes me reflect on that. That was so much of the training, the respect, the emotional control. I mean, we did a lot of kick punch sparring, a ton of it, but it was always with control. You weren't doing it. You were doing it as a practice. You weren't doing it as an attempt to hurt anybody.
Right. Yeah.
And that's one of the things that a lot of people will kind of mistake with MMA, the MMA world, especially within the athletes themselves. I think as a spectacle, it looks like very violent, and a lot of people actually go there for that. But the actual competitors themselves they're not like that, a lot of them. I mean, they'll talk like that when they're preparing for a fight or whatever, but afterwards, you always, 95% of the time, they're hugging each other and they're best friends afterwards, and they have a lot of respect for each other, regardless of the outcome.
I believe that. I mean, it's been commercialized, right? And
Massively.
So that's the hiccup. That's the challenge, I think, that every talent faces is when the commercialization happens, and then to be able to honor that and yet still be truthful to your intentions. Because
you got to wonder if it would be popular if it wasn't sensationalized in some way too, right?
Yeah, and I think maybe just it still bodes those deeper causal questions, like why do we need that? Why are we craving that as a mammalian species on Earth? Why are we craving watching each other, or whatever that is?
Or that competitive nature, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
I think it's our nature. I think it's in our nature to be competitive, and I think part of evolving as a species is rising above that competitive nature and realizing that there is enough for everybody, and it's not this scarcity mindset that we have going on, so often, I think.
That's interesting.
If you look at a dog in nature, that or a dog will eat until it gets sick, and then it will throw up and eat its vomit again. You know, and I feel like that's how nature is. It's just this, I gotta get as much as I can for myself.
Survival
mode, and I feel like that's right now a lot of the state of what's happening in humanity. It's just like everyone's out for themselves. You know, we're creating our surplus to make sure we protect our surplus, so we have enough for ourselves, and you know, I just feel like that's the overall, the still prevailing mentality around the world, and I think we gotta evolve past that and realize that, you know, there is enough for everybody, enough to go around.
It definitely could be that, but there, you know, there's also, you know, I think a lot of the 18th and 1900s and into the 21st century, you know, that's a common interpretation of Darwinianism, and it doesn't, you know, applying that, saying, well, yeah, the nature of business is competition, all that kind of stuff. It could be that. It definitely could be that, but you know, or is that just how, you know, we've culturally accepted these traits? Like, I mean, you look back to hunter-gathering days, and if they're in like a harmonious balance with their nature, like say, let's isolate a generation. I don't know if they're out competing with each others of the tribe. They're playing. I think play is definitely a part of human culture and human life, not culture, but human nature. But I think there's legitimate evidence that competitiveness might not necessarily be a part of our nature. It could be a learned thing, a cultural, societal thing.
Well, it's hard to say too, right?
You can't say. I mean, like, just putting the other side.
Homo sapiens and Neanderthals, right? You know, the Homo sapiens potentially wiped out Neanderthals. You know, if you have packs of wolves defending their territory, you enter their territory, they will attack you. You know, and it's wondering, you know, that this is their area, this is where their resources are. They're protecting their resources. You know, and it seems to be nature up to a certain point, but then you have to come to that point of you know, evolving beyond that, hopefully.
Right, beyond nature.
Yeah, it's
so
like beyond the,
right,
it's like beyond the,
I don't know.
But we do have, I think as humans, we have access to higher faculties.
Yeah.
You know, beyond just the animalistic side, and that's really the invitation, right? That's the responsibility piece. That's the opportunity for us to say, well, we're not a pack of wolves. We're a group of conscious beings that have access to our intuition and our integrity and our heart intelligence, and we keep overriding it with excuses about why we behave in ways that are basically systematically destroying our planet and our species.
Yeah, and coming back into what you're saying with the changing the bottom line, you know, that's where that kind of comes into play. It's like, okay, you know, let's refer to our internal integrity and our developing awareness, and how are we going to change these corporate cultures to kind of get more in alignment with that? And
I wouldn't say even corporate cultures. I'd say culture as humanity. I mean, right now we're in the United States, Canada, the West is involved in so many different wars over resources, basically, from what it seems like, over oil.
Yeah.
You know? So we still have that mentality of as a society that we need to go and conquer somebody to take their things.
It's a super complicated system. You know, we have internal forces and things to work on ourselves individually, and then we have these massive environmental and cultural and societal forces, and it's just it's
we can go on. It's a trip. We can go on.
Well, and this is the reason why I think it's so important for us to cultivate. When we speaking of leadership, like, it's so important for us to cultivate the necessary skills to have a seat at the table. Like, this is not the time for us to sit out the political, economic conversations, you know, and I think, unfortunately, we just have to be mindful of not, you know, getting too much on this just sort of hippy-dippy thing. This is the time when if you have cultivated a spiritual connection and awareness with yourself, you know, you need to be in those conversations. It's that idea, you know, Marianne Williamson, who's a thought leader that I appreciate quite a bit of what she has to say. You know, she makes the point that we didn't, you know, the masses didn't wake up one day and say, you know what, let's free the slaves.
It's true.
It's always a small group of people that are basically thought to be insane by the masses that say, no.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be that way.
This is not right.
Yeah.
And so maybe the hippies got it right, people. I don't know.
It takes time. It takes, just spreading the meme. And I kind of have used this analogy before. I'm going to say it again because I personally really like it, is that every human being, you kind of equate it to a neuron, and humanity is this global network of consciousness, and we have to keep firing those neurons. If you're in this kind of minority group that maybe feels that you have a higher message to communicate to the masses, just keep firing your meme. Keep, like you said, be yourself. First, know yourself and be yourself. And I kind of, the higher truth will kind of prevail. It will, it's once you kind of are open to it and experience some sort of awareness, then it's hard to ignore that and shut it out and go back into an unconscious habit. You can kind of go with it a little bit, and it seems to be spreading. It seems to be growing. We might be inside that kind of circle right now, and it seems to be growing. But I do know that it is very, very small still, and but it's a fight worth or life worth living.
Absolutely, what I mean? Absolutely, and that's why we need these tribes to come together, right? Because I think we were talking about this earlier about that those basic human needs, that seem to prevail and sort of drive things subconsciously. Our need to feel that we're safe, that we're part of the collective. It's like that ultimate human fear of being kicked out of the tribe and being ostracized, alienated, alone, right? And so we do all these crazy things to try to fit in and try to be liked and try to be part of the tribe, and oftentimes at a sacrifice of our own integrity, because we have this internal driver that's saying, like, no, this is not what I believe, or I know that I have to say something, right? So, and then you have this battle, this internal dilemma that's going on a lot of the times for us. It's this, we've got the internal drive, but yet we want to be liked and fit in, or perfect, or we have all these little hiccups that we got to work, which then goes back to working on yourself. You go back and more cleanup. You back to the work on the things that are stopping you from having the courage to speak up, or having the courage to sign up or show up, whatever that looks like, right? And so it's just this constant dance with yourself.
And it never ends.
No, I don't think so.
Well,
until the day we...
Maybe.
Yeah.
Or it will
I think we float
eventually.
away from our bodies and have a really big belly laugh, which is kind of ironic because we wouldn't be in our body. But just, I think we just we must just look down and laugh and think, wow, look at how serious I was
who
taking
knows?
it.
I think we should all spend more time in float tanks.
Yeah.
Contemplating these things.
I agree.
So get in that tank, people.
Yeah.
Get in there.
I agree.
We'll think about your life a little bit.
Yeah.
Check in. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think on that very poetic expression there, we'll wrap it up. Heather, thank you so much. I want to wish you the best of luck with your talk this weekend. I know you're going to crush it. You're going to nail it. So a premature congratulations with that, and enjoy it. When you're up there, take it in.
No kidding, right?
Like it's a cool experience, and I know BCIT is doing an awesome job with it. So I look forward to watching that online and sharing it, and encourage everyone to wait, because there's going to be a whole plethora of Vancouver talent speaking at this thing.
Yeah, there is.
So,
the lineup is incredible for sure.
So take advantage of that, and again, it's the leader-within.com. is for the corporate leadership kind of training that you and Rob Murray are doing. Heatherwhite.ca, connect with you that way, at Heather2020 on Twitter, and Heather White on Facebook. So, if you're out there and you want to connect with her, shoot her a message and tweet at her, and just ask her if there's something on this show that you want to go into further with, engage. That's what it's all about, connecting that tribe. So thanks so much for coming on Vancouver Real. We appreciate it, and maybe we'll do it again sometime.
Oh, thank you guys so much for having me.
Awesome.
It's fun.
The honor's all mine. Yeah, it was.
Cool.
Thanks a lot.
First podcast in the books for you.
Yeah,
there you go.
I can check that box.
There you go.
Podcasting, TEDx talks, whatever.
I know, no thing. It's all the same level, right?
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right, well, thanks again.
Yeah,
and until next time, everybody, thanks for tuning in to Whatever Is.
Whatever is.
All right.
To whatever is.